Hello, good morning, everyone. My name is Adam Brooke. I'm Head of Marketing at the ISM. I'd like to welcome you to this inaugural live webinar with three of our members. Introducing them, there is Iain Rose. He's been a champion. He is a former BESMA judge, and he's a proud supporter of the ISM for many years. Simon Scott Nelson, he is a Director of Sales and Marketing at Air Marketing in Exeter. I had the pleasure actually going down to meet him, which was the longest journey I've ever made on the planet of Earth. But it was very much worth it. And got to meet him and his team, and a shout out to Owen Richards down there as well. And then obviously introducing Sarah from Barnham Broom Hotel, who is joining us as well. But this is what the ISM is all about. It's all about getting members together to talk on a topic they've not really had the chance to speak to each other about, and actually getting together and meeting each other and coming back with a formulaic plan. Now, this is completely unscripted. We've done a few test runs, but I'd like to thank everyone for their time, and we're going to crack things forward. So the topic for this webinar was all about the changing landscape of sales, especially during the COVID period. And I asked everyone on this webinar to go away and come back with some questions and some themes on what we'd like to discuss. So to kick things off, a question to all of you. In terms of the changing landscape of sales, I mean, how has the landscape changed for each of you over the last few months of lockdown? What have you excelled at? And what would you like to improve? And to kick things off, Sarah, do you want to start things first? Then we'll go to Iain, and then we'll go to Simon.
Yeah, sure. So for me, primarily the massive change has obviously been the lack of contact with people. So either in person, normally go around offices and businesses to see clients and introduce myself to potential new clients, which obviously I've not been able to do. So I've therefore had to rely on the likes of LinkedIn and email and things to contact people. So the challenge has been sort of changing that style of connecting with people and staying in touch with people and maintaining relationships with people, making sure I pick up the phone just to say hi every now and then, checking on you, just to keep that relationship building. I think that's made me improve on thinking about doing that more, like making sure that there's that personal touch a bit more.
Okay. Iain, what lessons?
I'm in the business of improving business and business and sales coaching, and a lot of my time is actually spent on the phone or webinars anyway, so there's not an awful lot of change there, but certainly the customers and the clients are finding that they're now indoors, and it's a changing landscape for them, and it's one of motivation, it's one of leadership, it's one of if you're coaching the coach, for instance, you've got to watch that they're not micromanaging, and it can be a problem. But it's getting the motivation of the clients up, and as you say, keeping in touch with them and using all the digital technology that we have now available to help them grow and develop the business still.
What Simon, I'll get on to you in a moment. Iain, you mentioned something about technology. What sort of technology are you guys using in the lockdown? Because I'm assuming, actually, I'll lead on to Simon after this. But what sort of technology are you finding useful in these periods? What are you using now that you weren't using 2 months ago?
Well, you've introduced us today to Bright Talk. That's something that I wasn't actually too familiar with. Yep. There's all the usual ones. There's the Zoom, and there's the Skype, and there's the phone, and there's the all the digital techniques that are within phones as well, your WhatsApps, etc. So there's all those techniques which have been going on for a while, to be fair. But I think nowadays a lot more people are being introduced to them and using them a lot more. And in some areas, they're actually benefiting more. They're managing to get more people on board to listen to some training or some workshops, whereas before in person we maybe just had a dozen.
Well, it's a technology we've had for some time, isn't it? We launched the WhatsApp service for members. It's something that we've always had, WhatsApp. But as soon as I launched it to members, I had something like 400 messages. So it's a blessing and a curse. So Simon, over to you now. How's the landscape changed for you down in Exeter?
And you do love a WhatsApp, don't you know? You do love WhatsApp. And I think that goes to show, I think that goes to show actually that the technology was probably there. It's just coming into its own now and being used more. We've mentioned we use all of the tech stack that Iain pointed out, but we use it in different ways. So now we also use Vidyard and other video apps. And when we're talking to each other, it's usually by video, so we can see each other. I think when contact is down, so important to get away from those grey emails sometimes and actually just video each other. And our Teams channels have never been busier. Our meetings channels where we've got staff who have been furloughed, they are cheering on those that are keeping the business going. So that culture is driving us forward. So it's not just the few who are there and still creating a lot of business for us. It's those who aren't, who are getting themselves involved. And that's what we do through video. I think personally, I've never been so busy with meetings, good, productive meetings of all sorts. No traveling in between. It's back to back with 10, 20-minute breaks in between. And that can be, and I think there's far more meat on the bone now in the conversations that we're having. So there's a denser concentration of meetings, but the outcomes are going through the roof. I see that becoming the norm going forward.
Okay. You touch on your team camaraderie. I did actually get to witness it when I was an extra. I went back to London a few stone heavier because they decided to feed me pizza. But it was part of a family environment, really. Celebrating successes, celebrating achievements, and it was really lovely to see. And I got the feeling it wasn't just a show for me. It felt like this was a regular thing. I just happened to be down on a Friday. So to anyone listening, if you want to go down for a meeting at Air Marketing, choose a Friday. And now, in terms of, you mentioned staff, Simon, that are working from home, remote working and things like that. And obviously this harks on to our next point of remote working styles and management techniques and things like that. And also harks to a little bit of fear, or I guess distrust of employees working from home. Are they actually working, or are they playing their Xbox, Call of Duty? Let's not go into but this is all about trust, right? Do you trust employees to do the job, or what have you learned as a manager or as an employee? What kind of learning techniques can you pass on?
These times and COVID will never just suddenly create trust or make everyone untrustworthy. It's not the position we find ourselves in. That culture would have been inherent and made and born years ago or months ago. So the only thing that a crisis like this does will exaggerate what's already there. I mean, you're incredibly right about what you said about the culture at Air and what Owen has built. And if we didn't have trust before, it wouldn't be there now. We are incredibly lucky to be linked up anyway, so everyone can see who's working. But the camaraderie will drive us forward. To answer your question, we completely trust everyone.
Well, you hire the job, don't you? Iain, Sarah, over to you. What's your thoughts on remote working styles, managing a team? Are you managing a team at the moment, or are you reporting into someone? What are you?
Yeah, a bit of both for me. I'm reporting into my directors still. I work very closely as business development manager. I work very closely with the marketing team. So we've developed our own little WhatsApp group. So we send each other little motivational messages, updates on what we're doing. If I see something that someone else is doing, I might share it with them and vice versa. So we're sort of keeping in touch and keep communicating in that way. As you can possibly tell, I do come into the hotel to my office sometimes to do some work, just to keep that feeling of being at work. And there are a little team managing the bedroom block that are open for service workers and essential workers staying with us. Mm-hmm. So it's again to show them that, you're not here on your own. We're all a team. I'm coming in sort of too. So yeah, I think it's to just all show that we're all still here and we're all still going strong. With regards to trust, I think that shines through anyway, because a lot of my clients are saying I'm one of the only hoteliers that have kept in touch with them. They haven't heard from a lot of other hotels that they normally have accounts with and work with. So that's nice. And then they're also feeding that back to the directors, which is good. Okay. So yeah, hopefully as soon as we're ready to open again, that will be in their mindset that, that was a communication that we kept going and kept our relationships going.
You're building the future, basically.
Yeah.
But Iain, how about you? What's the how's it?
Being involved with many companies, they would I would say they would replicate what both Sarah and Sam have said there. Keeping in touch with them is very important. leadership and motivation, and setting up regular calls with them, maybe first thing in the morning, 8:30, and maybe in the afternoon. Not every day, but certain days, and giving them goals and visions, so that it keeps their motivation, their spirits up. And you have to keep fit as well. There's a lot of sitting around at the moment in this lockdown, so stand up, move around.
Sarah showed us a packet of Haribo before this started.
Healthy snacks.
So yeah, the motivation, keeping in touch with them, especially and your customers as well. And it gives you a chance to actually sit and analyze your customers. Your customers used to have. What's happened to them now? Can we get in touch with them again? But keeping in touch with existing customers using all the digital technology that we've spoken about.
And Adam, I think, and to add to what Iain says, it's from a leader, it's about normalizing the whole situation and the conversation around everyone's health and well-being as well. And it's no good just sending emails in a time when people have time off and not recognizing that they're having to be flexible and juggling family commitments and everything else. Why not do a video when you've got a message to send out to your staff while you're out walking yourself, or while you're out sitting in the garden, or while you've got ironing all around you, or 3 kids sitting on your lap. I mean, that way you are saying that you're one of the team and you're saying that it's okay, I'm with you. I think the problem is that if you're still sending emails at 11 o'clock, you're not being authentic. And the one thing that has come out with this whole situation is authenticity is absolutely shining through. Are you one of the team? Can you lead a team? Do you know what they're going to, or are you not interested in what they're doing? And that will only happen through engagement. And I think one thing that's happened with all of this is that people are becoming human. And whether you're being zoomed into a CEO's living room and you can see their pet cat behind them, or any one of your team who are having to be broadcasting because they're in isolation from their children's bedroom, everything is a leveler and everything is normal. And I think if you're still pretending that it's not, that nothing has changed, you're the one that stands out and you're unauthentic.
I mean, you hark back to you're sort of, I'm using that word hark a lot, aren't I? I feel like Christmassy. Anyway, there's an element of managing your own time. I mean, I'm guilty of this at the minute. You've just said do not send an email out at 11 o'clock. Well, I did that last night because I think I'm turning. Hate to say this, I feel like I'm not keeping to the 9 to 5 at the moment. I'm getting up at 8 o'clock, doing a round, getting through to about 12. And then I get loads more energy between 3 and 7. For some reason, I'm not keeping. Do you have any tips for people like me who are not keeping to the 9 to 5?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things. There's one, I thought the 9 to 5 was dead because everyone is having to do that and work around various different hours. I think when well-being is being prioritized, you have to go with what you feel like. No, there's not one cat fits all. And if you work better in the evening, you work better in the evening. If you're sending emails at 11 o'clock, maybe just a note that I don't expect you to get back to it or reply immediately, which I'm sure you do anyway. But then I thought I had introduced to me the concept this week that actually the 9 to 5 might be coming back. It just looks in a completely different landscape. And by that, I mean that instead of with technology, we tried to squeeze and crowbar in our well-being and all the jobs that are around work into the whole day. And we were blurring lines. Now, actually, what people want, I think, clear lines between where they're working and what they're doing outside, and they're prioritized with their health and their family and friends. Mm-hmm. And so actually the 9 to 5 may be coming back in terms of the hours worked. It's just the boundaries, and that could be different times of the day for different people. But the lines are being drawn now and people want more. Okay.
Any more to add on that, Sarah?
Yeah, just watch where you have your lunch, Adam, because and what you have for your lunch, because that can affect your.
I'm not as cooking as Deliveroo is my friend at the moment. So before COVID kicked off, I had a fantastic figure. No, I'm lying, obviously. No, Deliveroo is the savior, I think, for everyone working from home. But obviously, I'm going to be told that you should cook more. But hey ho. You mentioned about sort of moving this on to another sort of question. I think you did mention it before, Simon, about teams being more involved with each other, and that kind of rolls into how the B2B process at the moment is being. There are more people being involved in the buying process at the moment. I'm not sure with people working from home. At the current situation is that everyone wants to be involved in something. Isn't there an element of how? Here's a question to all of you: how many people need to be involved in the buying process? I mean, shouldn't it be just a one-to-one thing? I mean, isn't there an example? I'm causing a storm here, I know, but is there a way of which there could be a sort of a competition around who owns the lead, who owns the sale, if the sale comes across, who owns that deal? If so many people are involved in it, who does the buyer even report to? Thoughts?
I think when you mentioned the amount of people involved in the sale, I would turn it to the customer side, where there's more and more people involved. You may have the one sales manager, sales exec, or account manager, but it's the amount of people that are actually involved with the customer that you have to make contact with and make sure that they're aware of the products or the services you're doing. So the amount of people is, I think the average is about 5.4 at the moment in B2B, business to business selling. And that could change from company to company, as small as the different size that the company is. But certainly, if you have one account manager looking after that client, it tends to be like that. You may have, you're going to have other people within the company servicing the account, but there usually is one person who's got the ownership of that and has the responsibility for the development, the growth, and eventually, all the steps of the sale right through to the very important one, which is the follow-up, which can get you your referrals. So there's more people in the company now being involved, and they do a lot more research now. They're doing a lot more research, and that's why, the web has come to be so important. And websites are great landing platforms where companies can really tell you what their business is about, and hopefully get you into the shop.
Okay.
I think it really depends on each client. They're all very different for what they're booking, for what they're using us for. So if it's a corporate golf membership, for example, it tends to be the directors, and I deal straight with them most of the time to set up corporate deals for them. For meetings and events, it tends to be more the PAs, and then it's getting to the right PA, because lots of companies have massive groups of PAs and all do different things, and it's sometimes that chief PA that you need to get to. So yeah, I think it really varies. I always just try and find out who the person is, and then once I do, I then try and research them to find something that I might have a connection with them on, to try and build an instant relationship between us. As everyone always says, people buy people, so I'd rather try and get a trust element between us, a common ground between us, and then build on it from there to then hopefully spark a relationship that then makes them trust me and want to use me as their preferred choice for the reason they're using the hotel.
Okay.
I think for me, Adam, it goes back to these issues. If they were there before, they'll be there now, and clear communication channels. There are going to be issues, clearly, when someone who was the cog in that wheel isn't there anymore for whatever reason. But again, that's communication. It may be that your policy writer or your pitch isn't there, but there should have been templates and backups in place anyway, and communication will always get around that. If the culture's still there, you can still ask people, for their advice. It's a time where it's not going to be perfect, but if you say that you're perfect, you'll stand out more again. Just be authentic. Let people know that you can't get back to them today because you've got childcare or something else. Is that okay? Get some buy-in. We know it, like Iain said, it takes usually about 5, 6 times to get hold of anyone anyway. And before all this, we were finding that the levels of sign-off were going out, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 people in big corporations. So obviously, I mean, does it take less time to get those 6 people now on a Zoom call when everyone's that more flexible, or is it worse when everyone's got manic diaries and you have to do that 3 or 4 weeks into the future? Personally, I think it's easier to get quicker sign-off now if done correctly.
You just mentioned, you just touched on a point which I guess kind of impacts all of you. You mentioned, Simon, about 6, 7 people in a business being sign-off. What happens if one of those people leave? How have you managed that in the process? How have you managed that in the past? Because that's happened to me in the past. You're speaking to someone about a particular product or service, and then that person one day ups and leaves and goes to another company. Obviously, they're not going to tell you they're going to leave, but that person could be a key cog in that decision-making process. And then someone else comes in, and then you've got to start all over again, right? How have you, for me personally, forget everyone else on this webinar, how would you, what advice would you give?
That's a killer, isn't it? That's a real kick in the gut. Honestly, you've done all that work, you've gone through a tender process, you've had verbal agreement, and they're just going to nudge it up for sign off, and then you ring up and they've cleared off. It's a killer. I don't know. That's just part of sales, isn't it? Now, hopefully, there'll be enough benchmarking of those conversations that you can try and not start again. There'll be a few copy and paste emails forwards. As your colleague was amazing just before they left, but they did promise me this. There'll be a bit of that. So use as much evidence of the conversations that you've had with those guys, and try and create that familiarity with the brand that you're all still there. And if get to that meeting as soon as possible, get the new person down to your office, give them pizza like we did to you, or whatever their push buttons are, and really try and build that relationship quickly, but very assertively. Don't go straight back to a cold call, because you will lose all that good work that you've done. So plenty of reference to the conversations you've had before, and almost an assumption that you're still in the driving seat.
I literally had this happen to me fairly recently. So exactly that. Excuse me. I went straight in to meet the lady's replacement who I'd been dealing with. Took bribery of lovely cakes from the local bakery so that she would let me in, and then sort of sat with her and went through everything I'd discussed and agreed with her predecessor, and also added a few more things that I wanted them to work with me on before that they weren't keen on, to pretend that they were going to do it. So I actually ended up benefiting and getting more from it, because the replacement believed me in what I'd said we'd discussed prior. So I ended up not only getting their Christmas party, their regular monthly manager meetings, but I also then got a golf day out of it, which the other lady didn't want to do. And then this lady did, because I pretended that's what we discussed.
Well played.
And we now have a really good relationship. She'll come. I often invite her over for sort of some afternoon tea with us, with me and maybe one of the ladies in the events office that books the meetings regularly as her contact, just to sort of flatter her a bit and thank her for choosing us and keep using us.
Sarah, as a question, as your hotel, I've not actually visited your hotel yet, although very nice. How are you managing future bookings for the venue? I mean, what are you telling customers as to when they can book another?
This is very difficult.
Yeah. Obviously, we've got, I'm not going to mention it too much, we've got BESMA coming up, and we're trying to fix a venue, but is the world going to look the same again in June next year, or are we going to be, how are you managing that process? What are you, because I'm assuming people are still coming to you for inquiries, but you're not able to help them. So what, or maybe
we are helping them. We never say no. We're just saying when it comes to the time, if we have to adjust things and be flexible with you, we of course will. But let's hope that all's going to be okay, and book what you would normally book and plan what you would normally plan and go with it. And then if it turns into something where we have to reduce your numbers slightly because we have to have social distancing between you, or turn it into a barbecue outside or something different, then we'll work with you and do it. But let's hope that everything stays the same as it was before, and we can remain active and taking inquiries and bookings as before, and current bookings that we have in place that we've had to keep sort of looking at to review if we need to postpone them, if we need to cancel them. Again, we're just doing that as a 2 week ahead process at the moment. We instantly did the whole of the last week of March and all of April as an instant process. And then as we've worked through April with them, so we've been looking 2 week ahead. So we need to move you, we need to cancel you, we need to do what we need to do with you. And then, as soon as we know what and when we can do more, then we will.
I mean, that kind of goes back to, how marketing are actually selling that message. I mean, how are your marketing teams reacting to this? How are they helping you? Are they assisting? What kind of strategies are they coming up with? What's worked, what's not? They
really are. So lots of obviously, lots of weddings are a good example of something that's had to move, and they were instant, cannot happen, because most of them are around. They were definitely all above sort of 50 people. So again, it was sort of a case of speaking to marketing and say, right, let's jump on this, because lots of other venues might not have space to move their current bookings. So let's advertise that we've got space for next year, contact us. Same with like the hen parties for our spa packages and overnight weekend packages for the hen parties. Let's really push that for next year and advertise that, because lots of people are going to have to have cancelled those and be looking for something else to do instead. Straight away marketing, we're on it. Boom, boom, let's get some messages out. For my corporate clients, I've asked them to create some nice content for me to share and keep them posted on what's happening with us as well. So it's not just a standard black and white email from me. It's something a bit pretty, a bit nice, some nice imagery from the beautiful grounds we've got here, and just make it a bit different. So we'd like you say it's not just a standard hi, how are you? Do you want to book anything? Message.
Okay. And how are have your marketing teams bought any new software lately to help them do that, or is it all the same sort of?
As far as I know, I think it's all the same. I think they've worked with the software companies we've currently got a lot more now, though. So I think they are using the current databases a lot more. So the systems that store the data for the golf club, the systems that store the data for the leisure club, the systems that store the data for the hotel, they're all very different systems, but they're trying to get something that will connect to all of them, so we can send something out to all of our members for whatever reason they're using us. So yeah, they're probably just working on what they've currently got a lot more.
Okay. Iain, what's your marketing teams?
I've actually been to Barnham Broom. It's a beautiful part of the country, like Scotland, and you have to draw and you have to pull in your clients to the area, and it's certainly the area is very welcoming. But the problem is the current climate, and we're all suffering because people buy from people sell. And Simon's point or your point earlier on about the buyer leaving, or one of the people in the chain leaving, and you've got to follow up on that. Normally you would jump in a car or a plane or whatever, and you would meet the new person and you would be selling yourself to them, and now it's very difficult to do that. So you've got to try and find out is there anyone else really taking over that slot. But it could have an advantage because that person that you had a good relationship goes somewhere else, which may well be a great opening for you in the next company, which can open the door immediately. So that has its benefits there.
Sitting patiently in the corner there, Simon. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, I think I hear exactly what Iain's saying. I think in the old days you would jump in the car. Now I can go straight into the living room. I can learn so much more about them. For me, speaking to top level C-suite and everyone in between, I find it a far more familiar. If you can adapt your pitch, and so much so that it's not actually a pitch, maybe you're planning for the future. We're going to talk a lot, we're going to get to know each other. And then after this, we'll do some business. But, business is still out there, and maybe people feel comfortable doing it in their own living room. I don't think there's anything as good as eye contact and a handshake. Okay. Definitely not. But, and maybe a round of golf at Trump Turnberry, something like that, Iain.
Well, I know you've actually done that, yeah?
Well, yes. Yeah, on the pitch and putt, yeah. Very, very small round, but Trump Turnberry's gorgeous. But, yeah.
Well, while we've been speaking, even though I'm not sure if I mentioned this at the start, but audience members can ask questions. And we have had a flurry of questions. I thought, how do you guys feel about answering these questions on the fly? Are you ready for it? Salespeople, you're always ready. Right. First question. Hi, guys. You all sound so motivated. How do you keep this momentum without your team around you?
I'm trying to stay really normal. So my everyone knows me at the hotel as a bit of a feeder, and are surprised at how much I eat. So I'm trying to keep up things by showing everyone what I'm baking at home. When they're asking me, "Oh, can I have some?" then I'll drop some off to them on their doorsteps, or to bring stuff into the hotel. Just to be normal, I'm still Sarah the feeder, and then that's a nice reaction from them to me as a little bit of a morale boost that they're liking what I'm doing. So I think, yeah, that's nice. A little bit of community there in that respect.
Everyone, we're having a meeting. After this, we're going to go get.
Do you know what? You don't have to be all rah all the time and beating the drums, because that's not authentic. You could actually be pushing someone down if you're appearing all 100% guns blazing and you're not recognizing the fact that someone's trying to do their job with their children around and with other commitments. Sometimes it's all right to be normal, and what actually will motivate them more is the collective buy-in that everyone is in the same boat. So motivating teams is about engaging and communication. It's not all old school and trying to G everyone up the ways we were, because everyone's different. Everyone's going through their own problems now. To motivate someone is to understand someone and see exactly where you can help them, because it may be that they can't do something at a certain time, and you're motivating them by reallocating that task to someone else who's more than happy to help at that time. So yeah, that to me, just change your style of motivating. Maybe change the wording.
Yeah. Can I just come in there?
Yeah.
And something we touched on during the practice sessions this week was the behavioural coaching on the personalities of the clients that you have. And we at Ology Coaching, we use profiling to identify what people's behaviours are, whether it be dominance, influential, steady, or conscientious. And there's different ones, and if you can recognise that, for instance, someone who loves detail, a client who loves detail, you would really need to motivate them and give them lots and lots of information. If you're dealing with someone who is a dominant personality, they would only want a little bit of information. You need to recognise that. And so to motivate, and even to recognise that in your own teams and your own leaders, if you could recognise what their behaviours are so that you can lead them, motivate them accordingly. So there's a big emphasis on the leaders of today during this period of lockdown.
Fab. Well, just before this webinar started, I did tell everyone on this webinar that we just had under 500, 600 or so subscribers to it. And that's showing because we're getting questions from all over the world. So we've got one from...
That didn't add to the pressure at all.
I know. They're probably all relatives, actually. They're all just relatives. Your mum, your aunt, your sister.
It's definitely not my mum. She can't do technology. Don't worry about that.
Yeah, mine too, to be fair.
She would have found herself on this by accident if it was.
If I have to do another FaceTime chat with my mother and I look at her ear, I'm not going to be impressed. Right. So this one is from Mauritius. Nice part of the world here when you're in lockdown, right?
Yes.
The world economy has stopped for everyone. It is a huge opportunity to consolidate the value of sales and marketing. In terms of the world economy being stopped and how the world will look like, I mean, that's the biggest question of all, isn't it? What's the world going to look like in 3 months' time? Do you have any ideas? If you were a soothsayer, what would you say would be what products would you be selling most? What products would you be dropping? What services? Do you have any insight? I know it's a very tricky question, but
I've been trying to join on lots of webinars from fellow hoteliers across the world for that very reason. Some are ahead of us, some haven't had the lockdowns that we've had. So yeah, I'm trying to learn from them as to what the new norm might be for each department. So obviously, like the spa, potentially we could start selling products and post them out as a start to something there. Golf hopefully would be one of the first things that can open because it's outdoors, but will we have to limit it to 2 people out at a time instead of 4 people with an 8-minute gap in between tee-offs rather than 4 minutes? Bedrooms, are we going to have to leave them 24 hours before the housekeepers can go in and service them? We've obviously reduce our stock we can sell. So yeah, I've been speaking to some of the hoteliers in other countries, also some of the booking agents and travel agents in other countries, just to see what their feedback is to try and see what everyone else is doing and try and connect with others to learn from them.
Okay.
At Air, obviously we're B2B sales predominantly, and I would argue that it hasn't stopped. There are businesses that are flourishing in this. There are businesses that are putting their foot down on the marketing to capitalize on it all, and whether that be a high growth aggressive tech startup or SaaS products into HR, or maybe it's business funding. There are plenty out there, and so there's those businesses that are growing. The others, if you've had to understand the problems that they're facing and you've had to compromise your terms maybe for a few months to really let everyone know that we're in this together, and then gradually get them coming back in as we get through this. Again, it's just understanding, and if someone wants to throw more resource at it, that's fine because they're in a different industry, and those others that are struggling, just be a bit compassionate with them and look at your terms and do that when you come back.
Iain, I have a question from you from another fellow, Ted Shaw Fellow. I do like a man I do like a member who puts his post nominals on a question. I think for that he deserves a room to be named after him or something. But Ted Shaw, has come in with a question, and he's talked about technology that I've never even heard of before, called BetterMix. BetterMax? Anyway, moving on. His question is, how does one get senior management to understand what they need? How does one get senior management to understand that they need mentoring help when they have always believed they know it everything? How do you mentor someone who thinks they know everything already?
Well, you're right about it. You said a good phrase there, Ted, about Adam, about they've done it all. They set it up. They set it up from scratch. They've been here. There's nothing much that they know, and generally their personalities tend to be in the D area, because entrepreneurs, they like achieving results. They drive and they get their kicks from results and moving businesses forward. And so it is difficult, and so you don't lecture to them, but you have to serve them. You have to try and show them areas that maybe they could make improvements, and show them the actual benefits of how you can actually improve their business as opposed to them personally. And how are they getting the best out of their teams? Are they leading them?
Because Simon, I know that you run you're very hot on mental health, and you can talk about that in a few moments with discussion. But do you wait? How do you identify? How do you approach something? How do you know that someone needs mentoring? Do you wait to be asked, or do you approach them? It's always a tricky question, right?
Well, is this mentoring, or is this noticing that somebody's struggling?
Maybe mental health mentoring.
Right. So mental health, I think, comes down to the culture. Okay, it comes down to the understanding that if you're an employee within a business, asking your own company and going to them to report something that's up with your mental health is a bit like asking your mother-in-law to do your marriage counselling, because you know that they're there to help you, and you know that you've got communication, but you also know that everything is going to be listed, written down, and they have their attachment is with the company itself, or their daughter in the other example. So it's giving them a third-party option. There are two things. One is preventative, which is putting all the measures in place to the best of your ability, so that these issues aren't there, and that there's a whole ream of those, and that's what we're doing at Wellity. But you can put those in place, but there's also those reactive things, and the understanding that they may well need a third party to go to outside of the business, as good as your intentions are.
Okay.
I think getting back to the original question, there's so much video technology. How does one know which is best? And Ted mentioned he was a Betamax man, and I think you struggled with identifying that there, Adam.
I don't know what technology is. I could Google it. That would be rude.
Technology, and I think that what technology to use now. I think a lot of us are now being introduced to. We mentioned the Zooms. There's the Bright Talks. There's all the different methods, and I'm sure they're always equally as good, and some of them will have their benefits. So it's difficult, but certainly the ISM would love to help you. Adam could help you, Ted, with that.
Make me go grayer quicker. Thank you. Here's a question from Dubai. I mean, all these like glamorous locations. Where I need a question from like Bognor Regis or something. This is getting a little bit. So Darren from Dubai. Can anyone comment on how British business is handling exports at this time, and the difficulties they may be experiencing? Exports of not only products or services. Do you feel we could always, if that question is too tough for now, we can always answer it after the webinar's finished, and I'll get some of our presenters to come back to you. But anyone wants to take that up?
It's not so much tough. It's just that I don't necessarily know the answer, because that's not my field. But I would love to know the answer, and I'd love to do a bit of research on it after.
Over the 40 years that I've been involved in sales and sales management, both UK, European, and global sales, I've been involved with a lot of exporting and a lot of contract manufacturing all over the world. And there's different methods of developing your business. Take Europe, for instance. Before lockdown, you could have agents in those countries. You could have distributors holding stock. You could even have your own manufacturing units out there. But now it's getting more and more difficult, because one, you've got to get that stock and that product out there. So you're relying on the logistics and the freight forwarders. And if you put too much emphasis on your business overseas, then when something like this happens, and then you've not got much here, you've really got to try and develop, the business where you are. when you can, but it's difficult times, especially if it's going by rail or by road or by air. Difficult.
I will get I'll get you guys in touch with Darren on the separate cover and introduce you both. And you can. I actually spoke to him a couple of days ago, so I actually know who he is. Question here, another question. There's so many questions. Okay, why am I complaining? All right, some customers who have passed some decent business opportunities are not getting online for remotes. Let me read this. This never read off a question that someone's read through. It's not spelt right. Okay. Yeah. Okay. How do you provide authenticity when you're selling through a video call? How do you overcome the fact that you're not face to face? How do you overcome the fact that you're now over a phone? How do you overcome the challenges of not being able to meet someone and you're actually just now working in a remote environment? What challenges have you guys come across?
None. No challenges at all. It's normalizing the conversation. You're still two people. You're still trying to work. If you don't start it with some introductory comment about your day and technology, and invariably one of you there'll be something going on in the background. I mean, I find it such a nice way to work personally. It's only skills that you would have anyway if you're face to face. The fact that you're on a video call, but don't try and dress anything up, for goodness sake, and make anything seem like it's not. We're all in exactly the same boat. And I think if you go in with that approach, but also do try and do business as well when you're on those calls. Don't skirt around the conversation too much. People are still trying to work. They need structure for themselves. They need to meet their targets maybe, and they need to keep pushing forward. And that's the same for both parties. So it can be a lot more fun. It can be far more relaxed. You haven't just got out of a car and run into a Regis office. You are relaxed and in your own environment, and so are they. So just chill out, keep a structure to your conversation so you don't go off, and you'll both do fine.
There is a process in selling which you can apply to all what we've discussed today, which is the 7 steps of the sale. And if you take those 7 steps through, even on remote working preparation, you have to prepare for the discussion with the potential client. You have to introduce your own business to them. You have to question them to make sure that what you're going to try and sell to them meets their requirements. And then you have to present. And I think that you can actually get their full attention by presenting on screen and showing them all the benefits of what you're doing, your services. If you're selling services, you're selling a relationship. If you're selling products, you're selling the benefits of the product, which for the client. And then you've got to negotiate your deal. And you would welcome objections, just like you would in a face-to-face meeting. Objections, welcome them, because then you can answer them all. And then, of course, you've got to close it, just like you normally would, and ask for the order. And then don't forget, follow up.
I call it a sandwich. So I try to start on the niceties and a little bit of fun, and then I get to the meat and to the point of the business. Get through all that, and then end on some niceties again, and maybe some future plans to meet up as and when we can, and what are you doing for the rest of the day, kind of thing. So yeah, I try and do my sandwich.
Well, while we've been speaking, questions, those people that we've not got around to answering those questions, we will. I'll get Simon, Sarah, and Iain to get back in touch with you. Hopefully, Simon, Sarah, and Iain will come back at some point to do this again. This has been. I was very nervous. Actually,
first one.
This is the first one to do, and for them to come on board and do this with us, and the ISM has been a fantastic, experience for me. I actually spoke to one of our members the other day, actually yesterday, say, look, I actually am too nervous to this. Can you do it instead of me? And he actually, I'll remember that. But thank you for everyone for your time today. If you have any closing remarks, and I think I'd like to end it with some closing remarks. Do you have any final sort of things that you'd like to say to the audience before you wrap us up? Simon?
I would just say, obviously within the workspace, normalize the conversation about mental health and people's well-being. You're either going to have that conversation 6 months after they get back to work. We're in the pandemic now, but there will be another wave, a hangover coming back from it. And if you're not engaging and talking with your teams now, they will make the decision for themselves. So I would say early engagement, find out exactly what they're thinking, who they are, how best to adapt the landscape when you go back. But for goodness sake, start those conversations now, because there's going to be a hangover to all this. And that's what you can try and preempt and prevent.
I think for me, I'm trying to be Miss Positivity for both our staff and our clients. So I'm very much going with that. It will all be okay. It will all be okay. There's going to be lots of changes that we're all going to have to adapt to, but we'll all help each other through it. So let's just keep in touch. Let's keep each other posted and updated. Let's keep things moving as they should be. Just trying to support each other. If someone needs something, I'm trying to either help them or suggest someone who can. Building lots of communities within not just my staff and clients, but friends and social communities, so that if there is something that someone can't do, I can hopefully find someone that can help them or suggest something or recommend something, just to keep everyone going, really, just keep positive.
With regards to this present situation, coaching, communicate. There's a good period for learning. A lot of companies, because they're in lockdown, they're open to learning. So the webinars that we're doing today is educational. And if you have anything like that within your own business that you can educate clients, you'd be surprised just how attractive that is to them. So communicate, keep yourself motivated, and
keep positive.
Yeah,
that's it.
Well, everyone who has participated in this webinar, I'm going to make sure they're going to be featuring in the Winning Edge as a follow-up, which is our membership magazine. I'm sure some of them have featured in the past, and if they haven't, you're all invited, because this has been a fantastic experience for me. I've got another 7 of these to do, so I don't know what I've put myself in for. But from everyone, well, from me, thank you everyone from around the world who signed up for this. I mean, if it goes to show the fact that a live webinar from the ISM is greatly valued, and that's been respected, or that's been reflected in how many people have actually signed up. So thank you from me, Iain, Sarah, and
Simon.
Please look us up on LinkedIn, everybody, as well.
Thanks, Adam. Appreciate that.
Your hair is fine. Adam, your hair is fine, by the way.
This is what happens when you're the youngest person on the call. You lose it.
Yeah, brilliant.
Thank you, everyone. I'm going to wrap up the video call now. It'll be placed on demand, so you can watch it as much as you'd like. And I'll be updating the copy for the webinar with the further information about what we've discussed and things like that, and how you can reach out to all our presenters. See how I got around that without mentioning your names. Yeah, so it's a goodbye for me, everyone.
Yeah, goodbye. Thank you very much, Adam and ISM. Pleasure.
Yes, thank you.
Take care. Bye.
Take care. Bye.